welcome to my channel. I'm very excited, but also a little hesitant about today's video. Basically, today we are going to be reading Fourth Wing. This is definitely a very popular book right now. I feel like everyone is reading it, and it does seem like the general consensus is that most people really like it. And that is where the nervousness for this video comes from, because usually when books are super hyped up, I tend to be a little disappointed because I think I unintentionally go into them just expecting too much. Hold that thought, my cat wants to leave the room. Well, don't run away now, Demi. She always does that. She like scratches at the wall to like leave, and the second I get up to like open the door for her, she runs away. Anyway, all that being said, I've done my best to not watch any reviews whatsoever on this book because I wanted to go into it as blind as possible. I feel like that'll help me not have like any kind of expectations. I do expect to like it at least, but we'll see how it goes. So like I mentioned, I don't really know exactly what this book is about. I have heard kind of a general idea of the book, but I don't really know. So I'm gonna go ahead and read the synopsis before we get into it. 20-year-old Violet was supposed to enter the Scribe Quadrant, living a quiet life among books and history. Now the commanding general, also known as her toughest Talon's mother, has ordered Violet to join the hundreds of candidates striving to become the elite of Navarre dragon riders. But when you're smaller than everyone else and your body is brittle, death is only a heartbeat away. Because dragons don't bond to fragile humans, they incinerate them. With fewer dragons willing to bond than cadets, most would kill Violet to better their own chances of success. The rest would kill her just for being her mother's daughter. Like Xander, the most powerful and ruthless wing leader in the Riders Quadrant. She'll need every edge her wits can give her just to see the next sunrise. Yet with every day that passes, the war outside grows more deadly, the kingdom's protective wards are failing, and the death toll continues to rise. Even worse, Violet begins to suspect leadership is hiding a terrible secret. Friends, enemies, lovers, everyone at Basgaith War College has an agenda, because once you enter, there are only two ways out: graduate or die. Everything about that sounds intriguing. I love the fact that there's like a war going on. Love the dragons. I love the fact that they like bond or kill you. And I love the fact that it's like at a school. Right away, I already kind of like this main character. It basically says, literally in the first paragraph, "My chest heaves with exertion, my lungs burning by the time I reach the stone corridor leading to General Sorrengail's office. This is what 6 months of intense physical training has given me. The ability to barely climb 6 flights of stairs with a 30-pound pack. I'm so It's gotten so dark. It said that it was supposed to rain today, but it was like super sunny all day so far today, so I thought maybe it wasn't gonna rain, and of course, like the second I start filming, it turns into nighttime. I've been reading for like an hour, something like that. I feel like I've gotten to a good point to go ahead and stop for now because like I said, I do have some errands to run, and I'm very much one of those types of people that likes to like get that stuff done and out of the way. But before we go, I want to talk about what I've read so far. So I did leave off on chapter 7, and first off, one of the things that I wanted to mention, just like for aesthetic kind of purposes, every chapter title has like a little graphic of a dragon on it, and I just think it's super cute. And in addition to that, there's also little like quotes or whatever from different sources of materials within the world of the book, if that makes sense. There's a misconception that it's kill or be killed in the Riders Quadrant. Riders as a whole aren't out to assassinate other cadets, ... unless there's a shortage of dragons that year or a cadet is a liability to their wing. then things may get interesting. And that's from Major Effendra's Guide to the Writer's Quadrant. And then chapter 3, I'm not going to read it, but it's from A Field Guide to Dragonkind. And then for chapter 7, the one that I just left off on, it's got 2 from the War College Code of Conduct. So I think it's kind of fun that they pull quotes from like several different sources, like I said, within the book. So anyway, essentially we have Violet, who, like the synopsis mentioned, is the like head person. I can't remember her name. The general? Is she a general? The commanding general. So Violet is the commanding general's daughter. Apparently her mom got like really sick or something like that when she was pregnant with her. So basically Violet has been very like weak and fragile and sickly like her entire life. So instead of trying to be a dragon rider, she's actually trained her entire life to be a scribe. And then I guess at like a certain age, you have to kind of like take your entrance exam to whatever quadrant you want to be in. And again, Violet has been wanting to be a scribe. She's super prepared to be a scribe and to take that test. But 6 months before the test is supposed to happen, her mom basically is like, no, we're dragon riders, so you're gonna be one too. So essentially the beginning of this book is her going through the process to kind of like hype herself up to do this, but then also like the first stage to actually get into the quadrant, because apparently there's like a little test that they all have to do specific to the rider quadrant. And it's basically, I can't remember what they called it exactly, but I imagined it in my head as kind of like a bridge, and it's super dangerous and they have to like cross it to get over to their area of the college, where I think it said like 15% of the people don't make it. So literally 15% of people die before they even make it essentially across campus. That's kind of how I'm picturing it anyway. So that's crazy. And obviously this is a book about Violet, so I don't feel like this is a spoiler to say, but clearly she gets past this little trial or whatever, but it doesn't come without its like hiccups. And then the rest of what I've read so far basically is just like her first 2 days being a cadet within the dragon quadrant. Aside from that, I don't think I have really anything else to say. We are still pretty early on into the book. I'm on page 76, so I haven't even read 100 pages yet, and this book I want to say was 500? How many is this? Hold on. It is 498 pages, so I haven't even read a fifth of the book yet. Hello, good morning, welcome to Saturday. We are currently on page 239, which is the start of chapter 20. First off, her friend Dane, he's like her like childhood best friend, and he's basically I think like a year older than her. I wanted to like him so bad in the beginning, but he is getting so freaking annoying. No matter what Violet does or like seems to overcome, he just continually is worried about her and is constantly saying how like weak she is and how she's gonna die and all these things. Like He has no faith in her surviving this school, and it's just getting annoying at this point. So the last time I left you, basically she had just entered the school and like the program or whatever, and the point that I'm at now is basically we've gone through like the first few months of the school, kind of like preparing for being presented to the dragons, for the dragons to pick the riders, and the last like 3 or so chapters that I read was basically that process and what's kind of immediately happened after that, which all of that was what I thought this entire book was going to be about. So I'm really curious to see what like the other half of this book is going to be about. But first, circling back to the beginning of kind of what we read yesterday, they have like a few months of study before they actually get presented to the dragons, like I said, and during that time there's like several different things that they have to do. Like there's this big huge obstacle course thing, but then they also have like actual classes, like I can't remember exactly what they call it, but basically they get like in time like real life updates about things that are like going on outside of the war college, and then they also have to do like one-on-one combat with each other. And during all of these things there's always the potential of students dying, and like the book kind of set up, Violet is basically enemy number one because of the reasons that I explained yesterday. So she's always kind of like on guard with that, but then also because she is so much weaker and more fragile than everybody else, she has to kind of think of more creative ways to get around these trainings and things like that, which has been really, really fun to read about. And that's kind of like all I'm gonna say about the school part. I don't want to obviously give anything away, but it's been interesting. I love a good school, like magic school setting. But anyway, after all of like the training and things like that, they are presented to the dragons. It's definitely beneficial for the dragons and the humans to be bonded, but if they're not impressed by the students, the dragons can choose whether or not they want to bond. And during that process, they literally, like the dragons are off to one side in like a line on a wall, and the humans basically walk back and forth in front of the dragons. It kind of reminded me of like a dog show in a sense, but it was one of the more interesting chapters in my opinion. Like I just thought it was a lot of fun, and there was actually a couple of moments where I like laughed out loud, specifically at the very end of that chapter. And the whole bonding in general went way different than I thought it was going to. Well, I mean, I guess not like way different, because one of the things that I thought was going to happen did kind of happen, but there was definitely enough unexpected things that happened during that time, and kind of things that we've learned right after the fact that have me very, very excited to keep reading. Also too, because Violet has bonded with the dragon, which I feel like is not a spoiler, because what would this book be if she didn't get bonded? Even though she's like gone through the whole preparation for the bonding and has now bonded with the dragon, the other students are still very keen on murdering her. If anything, it's even worse now. So that's another thing that's kind of cropped up a couple of times since the bonding, and again, it's been fun. It's been a fun read so far. Dane just keeps getting more and more annoying. Once you bond with a dragon, basically you get powers, but I guess there's like a holding period until the dragon feels like you're ready. And Violet's dragon finally feels like she's ready. She's about to get powers, and I'm very excited about it. Especially because we don't know what her power is gonna be. I love that little like element of surprise. Okay. Something within me expands, somehow too big for my own body, too vast to be contained, and pain sears every nerve as I crack open, the sound reverberating through my skull like bones shattering. The process of actually getting your powers or like receiving them sounds very unpleasant. We don't know what her powers are yet still, but the feeling of the powers entering her or whatever has faded off, but something else has taken its place. She's getting like a specific impulse, and I want her to follow it just because I think the fallout of that would be funny, but it's looking like that's not gonna happen. It's been like an hour, I think, since the last time I updated you, and nothing really has happened yet. She still doesn't actually have her powers, which is a little annoying. Like the dragons are the ones that kind of allow the power to flow, I guess, but the writer has to like learn how to actually like channel it, and so she hasn't done that yet, I guess. Aside from that, the only thing that I really have to update on is the fact that Violet and Xander are definitely starting to spend more time together. I'm finding out that I really like fantasy books that have an element of romance to them, but it's definitely not like the point of the book. I feel like the fantasy elements are definitely more interesting to me than the actual romance, but the romance, it's just kind of something to look forward to, I guess. And yeah, and currently we are on page 310. We're like 2/3 of the way through the book. And like I said, they're just now kind of starting to spend actual time together. Anyway, I'm gonna keep reading and I'll probably update you guys in another hour or so, unless something like crazy happens. We've got some spice. Also, we know what her powers are, finally. But aside from that, I don't really know what else to say that wouldn't be like a spoiler of any sort. So I think I'm just gonna leave it at that for now. Also, I think this is gonna be my last update for the day because it is almost 8 o'clock, so 7:46. It's getting dark, as you can tell. I'm definitely gonna be finishing the book today, but I'm gonna have to just give you my final update tomorrow morning. Good morning, good morning. I have officially finished Fourth Wing, and I don't think there's really anything that I could say about the end of the book without giving anything away. So I guess just my final thoughts are that I really liked it. I loved how fast-paced the story was. I loved all of the school elements, all of like the trials and I guess like tests or whatever. Everything to do with the dragons was fun. It had some of my favorite tropes like enemies to lovers, and then also it had a little element of like a mated or like a bonded pair kind of situation, and people have magic. Like, what else could you possibly want from a book? I feel like this book had basically like everything that I love about books all rolled into one, which actually is kind of funny because one of my favorite things to do when I'm done with the book is to go to Goodreads and read some of the reviews. And I do tend to, like, regardless of how I felt about the book, I do tend to look at the 3-star reviews or like the more middle ground ones because they usually end up having good points for both sides of the spectrum. But this time around when I was going through the Goodreads reviews, I did actually read a couple 1-star reviews because they were at the top. And basically one of their reasonings for giving it 1 stars was literally one of the reasons that I loved it, because it has so many different things. It was like a little charcuterie board of just things that I love about books. I got like a little bit of a taste of everything. So if you couldn't tell, this is definitely a 5-star read for me. And on the subject of Goodreads and me liking to look at reviews after I'm done with a book, I thought it'd be fun if we kind of did that together to end off this video. So the first one we're gonna look at is a 5-star review, and it says, "I need the next book now," and that's literally exactly how I feel. This did leave off on like the tiniest bit of a cliffhanger. Not a cliffhanger in the sense of like someone's in peril and we don't know what's gonna happen to them. More so, it was kind of like a surprise element and you're like, oh, so that's what we're doing. And I thought for sure I was gonna have to wait like another year before that happened because this literally just came out like a month or 2 ago, but the next book is coming out in literally a couple of months. The rest of this review was very, very long, so we're gonna go ahead and move on to another one, but they did a really thorough review. It was like even detailed by character and everything. 5-star reviews are all about the feels for me. Like there were so many times when I was reading this book that I like squealed to myself and I like silently celebrating when something happened. Oh, also near the end, I shed some freaking tears. Like this book literally made me laugh, cry, all of the emotions. This was so good to me. And I feel like because it got so much hype, I kind of almost was resistant. Like I didn't want to jump on the bandwagon of loving this book, but I do. On the flip side of that, here's a 1-star review. "If I had $1 million for every cliche in this book, of which there are a multitude, I'd still regret spending $20 on all 498 pages of this mess." This 1-star review says, "Who had a gun to the head of everyone who rated this 5 stars?" Okay, this person said, "This is if Sarah J. Maas and Allie Hazelwood had a baby." I'm not seeing the problem. All right, and that's enough of that. Let's go ahead and go to our 3-star reviews, which again is kind of like more of my comfort zone. Let's just read one at random. This is actually a 3.5-star rating, and it says, "This was a highly enjoyable book. The author wasted no time. She made a fast-paced, action-packed, well-established fantasy world. I love how we got introduced to bits and aspects of this world slowly. She really knew how to world build. At every point of this book, all in bold, I knew what was going on, who I was rooting for. Every single page was a plot point and no fill-ins. I hate it when writers drag on the story," which same. Honestly, I'm kind of scared to get into like actual fantasy books with no like romance plot in it, because I do feel like those books tend to just be very long-winded, and I get bored when things are too long-winded. I did a couple of updates on Goodreads with this book while I was reading it, and the very first one that I did was basically saying that it just jumped straight into the story. Within a couple of pages, or a few pages, she was already doing her first trial to like get into the school or whatever, so it wastes no time. Like, you just jump straight into it, and I love that. And I definitely agree with this reviewer where I feel like the author did a really good job at kind of like allowing you to learn about the world as you're kind of going through what Violet is going through. So like, it doesn't just spend like mass amounts of the book explaining the politics of the world. You just get little tidbits here and there, which is definitely the way I prefer to read things like this because, again, I get bored. And I think that's all the reviews we're gonna read, but I did want to make one other point that I saw in a review yesterday, but I can't find it now. Apparently, a lot of people compare this book to ACOTAR, specifically the characters. Dane definitely gives very, very much Tamlin vibes, like overprotective, which is kind of endearing at first, but then turns to like a destructive degree. I don't know that I really see the whole Rysand. Actually, yeah, now that I think about it, Rysand and Xaden are also very similar because they both also have powers over like shadows. I mean, with Rysand, it's more of like the night sky kind of a thing, like darkness in general. But with Xaden, his is more specifically shadows, which actually is kind of more like Azrael. But anyway, that is everything that I have to say about Fourth Wing. Again, overall, 5-star read. I really, really liked it. I feel like I'm just like rambling at this point, so I'm gonna go ahead and go. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you have had the most amazing of days, and I will hopefully see you guys in my next one. Bye!